For 30 years, from 1962 to 1992, the American night had a familiar and comforting rhythm. As the local news signed off and the screen faded to black, a nation settled in. Drawn by the now iconic trumpet fanfare of Paul Anka's Johnny's theme and the booming, affable voice of Ed McMahon announcing, "Here's Johnny." This was the gateway to The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, a cultural institution that dominated late-night television not merely through ratings, but through a profound and intimate connection with the American psyche. Night after night, Johnny Carson was a guest in millions of living rooms, a trusted confidant who provided the final word and the last laugh on the day's events. His domain was a deceptively simple set, a desk that was both a command center and a shield, a chair for a sidekick who felt like a jovial uncle, and most importantly, that iconic couch. To sit on that couch was to enter a unique arena in the world of entertainment. It was a place of anointment. A comedian could launch a career with a flawless 6-minute set. A singer could capture the heart of the country with a soulful performance. An actor could become a star, not just by promoting a film, but by revealing a previously unseen charming personality. Conversely, a bad performance, an awkward interview, or a joke that fell flat could be a devastating, career-halting blow. Everyone in the industry understood this unspoken contract. An appearance on Carson's show was a make-or-break proposition, a trial by fire and laughter where the king's judgment, though often delivered with a gracious smile, was absolute. Yet, for all the public spectacle and the carefully crafted persona of the unflappable, witty host, there was always an enigma at the center of it all. The man himself, John William Carson. Behind the impeccably tailored blazers, the perfectly coiffed hair, and that famous sly, almost knowing smile, was a deeply private and complex individual. He was the master of ceremonies for a national conversation, yet he revealed very little of his own inner world. He laughed with his guests, teased them, and drew out their stories, but he rarely let the audience see behind his own carefully constructed curtain. This duality was central to his enduring appeal. He was both the most public of figures and the most private of men. This mystery extended to his personal tastes, particularly regarding the endless parade of celebrities who populated his stage. While the public and the press might have their own favorites, the guests that Johnny himself genuinely enjoyed, the ones he looked forward to and cherished in his heart, remained a closely guarded secret. The green room backstage was a who's who of Hollywood, Washington, and the arts, but which of them truly sparked a genuine joy in the host? Which conversations did he replay in his mind after the camera stopped rolling? For years, this was a subject of much speculation but little certainty. His personal favorites were tucked away, a mystery as intriguing as any the television world had to offer. The relationship between Carson and his guests was a delicate, intricate dance. He was the ultimate straight man, a masterful interviewer who knew how to set someone up for success, to give them the space to shine. He listened, a skill often underrated in television, and his reactions, a raised eyebrow, a hearty laugh, a self-deprecating glance to the camera, were as much a part of the comedy as any written joke. He created an atmosphere where magic could happen, whether it was the planned magic of a stand-up routine or the spontaneous magic of an unexpected, candid moment. He knew when to guide a conversation and, just as importantly, when to get out of the way and let a guest's unique talent take center stage. This curatorial genius was what made his show not just a talk show, but a masterclass in performance. And then, after the final good night and the wave to the camera, the mystery would reassert itself. The public was left with the performance, the polished and perfect hour of television. But the private man, with his private opinions, retreated from view. For years, his true feelings about the figures who defined his era remained locked away. Among the thousands of guests, the ones he held in the highest esteem were known only to him and his closest confidants. And as it would later be revealed, when that list finally came to light, one particular choice, a guest he cherished above so many others, was so unexpected, so counter to public assumption, that it left everyone who thought they knew the world of Johnny Carson utterly stunned. It was a testament to the fact that the real Johnny Carson, the man behind the desk and the smile, was always full of surprises. The man who would become a master of controlled late-night sophistication began his life in the American heartland, a world away from the glitter of Hollywood. Born in Corning, Iowa, on October 23, 1925, John William Carson was the middle child of Homer Lloyd Kit Carson, a powerful company manager, and Ruth Carson. The families moved to Norfolk, Nebraska when Johnny was 8 years old, planted him in the soil where his unique talents would first take root. It was a classic Midwestern upbringing, but even there, the spark of performance was evident. At the age of 12, a visit to a friend's house became a pivotal moment when he discovered a book on magic. Captivated, he sent away for a magician's kit, and with the obsessive focus that would later define his work, he practiced card tricks day and night. His mother, Ruth, nurturing his passion, even fashioned him a small cape, and by 14 he was performing as the Great Carsoni for local clubs and organizations, earning $3 a show. This early foray into entertainment was more than a hobby. It was his first classroom in timing, audience engagement, and the art of holding a crowd's attention. The path to this destiny, however, was not a straight line. After high school, he briefly hitchhiked to Hollywood, a bold move hinting at his ambition, but the realities of the world soon intervened. With the outbreak of World War II, Carson enrolled in the United States Navy in 1943, serving as a communications officer aboard the USS Pennsylvania. His duty involved decrypting top-secret messages, a role requiring precision and discretion. Yet, even in the disciplined confines of the Navy, the entertainer within him found an outlet. He became a skilled amateur boxer, compiling a formidable record in fights held on the ship. More significantly, he later recalled a profound moment of validation when he performed a magic trick for James Forrestal, the Secretary of the Navy. The successful trick, performed for such a high-ranking and imposing audience, gave him the confidence that he could captivate anyone, no matter how tough the crowd, a lesson that would serve him immeasurably in the decades to come. Following the war, Carson leveraged the GI Bill to attend the University of Nebraska. He initially majored in journalism, a choice that speaks to his innate curiosity, but his true calling pulled him toward speech and drama. He even wrote his college thesis on the mechanics of comedy, analytically deconstructing radio skits to understand how humor was built. A clear sign of a mind that sought to master the craft, not just practice it. Graduating in 1949 with a degree in radio and speech, he began his professional career at a local station in Omaha. It was here that his natural flair for quick-witted improvisation first shone on air. His big break came after a move to Los Angeles, where his writing for comedian Red Skelton led to a legendary opportunity. When Skelton accidentally knocked himself out backstage right before a live broadcast, Carson was thrust into the spotlight to host the show. His calm and funny performance under pressure announced his arrival. Soon the legendary Jack Benny asked him to be a guest, further cementing his rising status. After anchoring various shows in the 1950s, including the game show Who Do You Trust?, where he forged his pivotal partnership with announcer Ed McMahon, NBC finally convinced a somewhat reluctant Carson to take the helm of The Tonight Show in 1962. It was a move that didn't just change his life. It rewrote the entire landscape of American television. Johnny Carson's genius lay in his ability to wield satire that was sharp but rarely drew blood. His monologue jabs at politicians and public figures were a national ritual, delivered with a wink that assured the audience it was all in good fun. This carefully maintained balance, however, was violently upended in the early 1980s by a bitter and very personal feud with singer Wayne Newton, revealing a side of Carson the public rarely saw. A man who was intensely sensitive about his reputation and capable of holding a grudge that extended far beyond the realm of a punchline. The conflict originated not in a joke, but in a business deal. Carson was set to purchase the Aladdin Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, a move that would cement his status as a power player beyond television. Yet, at the 11th hour, he abruptly withdrew from the agreement. A consortium led by Wayne Newton swiftly stepped in and bought the property instead. The press had a field day, framing the story not as a strategic decision by Carson, but as a loss, portraying him as being outmaneuvered by the younger entertainer. This narrative infuriated Carson. According to his lawyer and confidant Henry Bushkin, Carson was deeply irked by the whispers and headlines that painted him as a loser in the high-stakes world of Vegas commerce. In response, he began to use his most powerful weapon, his nightly platform. The jokes started subtly, then grew more pointed, mocking Newton and his association with the Aladdin. For Newton, this was not the usual cost of celebrity. He saw the jokes not as comedy, but as a mean-spirited campaign. The tension simmered for years until Newton, in a stunningly candid appearance on Larry King Live, unleashed his fury. "Johnny Carson is a mean-spirited human being," he declared, "and there are people that he has hurt that people will never know about." He framed Carson's actions as a deliberate and unwarranted targeting, and he had not been idle in his defense. In a moment that seems ripped from a Hollywood thriller, Newton revealed that his anger was not just for television. He confessed that he had once marched into Carson's office at NBC Burbank and confronted the host directly. The scene was visceral and threatening. Newton, a physically imposing man, allegedly told Carson in no uncertain terms that if the jokes did not stop, he would physically pummel him. This confrontation laid bare the fragile line Carson walked every night. What he considered light satire, Newton experienced as a personal and damaging attack. The feud revealed Carson's hypersensitivity to his public image. The suggestion that he had lost a deal was an insult he could not abide, prompting a response that blurred the lines between his on-air persona and off-air pettiness. It demonstrated that for all his cool detachment on screen, Carson was fiercely protective of his status, his pride, and his ego. When he felt cornered or disrespected in reality, the man behind the sly smile was willing to strike back with more than a joke, and in Newton he found someone willing to strike back even harder. While Johnny Carson was the undisputed star of The Tonight Show, his true genius lay in his curatorial skill, assembling a rotating company of performers whose talents he personally admired and trusted to create television magic. These weren't just guests. They were his inner circle, each representing a different facet of entertainment that resonated deeply with him. At the core were the comedians who mastered their craft. Steve Martin brought a new intellectual absurdism to the stage, his wild and crazy guy persona delighting Carson with its unpredictability. In stark contrast, David Brenner became the most frequent guest by perfecting the art of observational humor, finding laughs in the mundane frustrations of daily life that audiences instantly recognized. Then there was Rodney Dangerfield, whose entire act was a masterclass in self-deprecation. Carson, often playing the perfect straight man, would regularly be seen doubled over with laughter, savoring every "I don't get no respect" one-liner. But Carson's taste also ran to the unpredictable and the daring. Don Rickles, the insult comic, was a favorite precisely because of the danger he brought. Carson gave him unparalleled freedom to roast everyone, including the host himself, creating spontaneous and electric television. Similarly, Robin Williams was a human hurricane of improvisational energy. Carson would often relinquish control of the interview, sitting back with a look of sheer delight as Williams unleashed a torrent of characters and riffs. This trust was paramount, extending to the non-comedians as well. Joan Embury, the wildlife expert, was a recurring guest because Carson cherished the genuine, unscripted chaos that ensued when live animals roamed the set, a welcome departure from the show's usual polish. His respect for legacy and artistry was equally evident in his interactions with icons like Bob Hope and Frank Sinatra. While he sometimes found Hope's promotional appearances formulaic, he treated his legacy with reverence. With Sinatra, the interviews were more serious and measured, allowing the legend to reflect with a depth rarely seen elsewhere. Finally, there was Bette Midler, whose appearance on his penultimate show fused comedy, song, and raw emotion, creating one of the most memorable moments in television history. She represented the pinnacle of a Carson favorite, a consummate professional who could make him laugh, but also, profoundly, make him feel. In the final weeks of his 30-year reign, the typical rhythm of The Tonight Show was replaced by a prolonged national farewell. It was a period of reflection, not just for Johnny Carson, but for the millions of viewers who had grown up with him. The final episodes were less a television program and more a cultural wake, a chance to look back on a unique era in American entertainment that was drawing to a close. The choice of who would share his stage in these last historic broadcasts was therefore loaded with meaning. This was not a time for fleeting promotional visits from stars of a new movie. It was a moment for summation, for legacy, and for genuine personal tribute. The guests had to be more than famous. They had to be significant. In his penultimate show, Carson made two selections that perfectly encapsulated the two pillars of his professional admiration: unbridled comedic genius and profound artistic heart. The first guest was Robin Williams, a whirlwind of improvisational energy who represented the modern heir to Carson's love for spontaneous, intelligent comedy. Their final appearance together was a masterclass in controlled chaos, with Williams erupting in a torrent of characters and riffs from a frantic Soviet defector to a manic golfer. Carson, as he so often did, played the perfect straight man and grateful audience, his own laughter fueling Williams's fire. It was a fitting tribute to the power of pure, unscripted joy that had always been a cornerstone of the show. But it was the second guest, Bette Midler, who transformed the evening from a simple farewell into an indelible piece of television history. Her performance was a carefully crafted, deeply emotional homage to the man himself. She was brash and funny, teasing Carson about his many wives with a rendition of "You Made Me Love You." But then she shifted the entire tone of the evening. Sitting on the edge of his desk, she sang a heartbreakingly beautiful version of "One for My Baby and One More for the Road" directly to him. The camera closed in on Carson's face, and for once the unflappable host was visibly, authentically moved, his eyes glistening with tears. In that unguarded moment, the carefully maintained wall between the persona and the person completely dissolved. The show culminated in a spontaneous and poignant duet. As they chatted, Midler began softly singing "Here's That Rainy Day," a standard Carson loved. To the audience's delight, he seamlessly joined in, harmonizing with her. It was an unrehearsed, intimate gift between two artists, a moment that spoke volumes about their mutual respect and affection. This penultimate show, for which Midler would win an Emmy, was the ultimate validation of Carson's curatorial instinct. He ended his run not with a rating stunt, but with a statement of what he valued most: the fearless innovation of a comic like Williams and the raw, emotional power of a performer like Midler. His final wave goodbye was not just the end of a show. It was the closing of a chapter in American life. He left as he had arrived, a master of his craft, a king surrendering his throne with grace, and finally, letting the public see the genuine man behind the iconic smile.